Damn. Oh, bullshit. You understand? Anything? Oh, bullshit. Oh,
Michael Shore, Dominion Gods, what is this? It's almost like a power panel. In fact, it could be.
What makes something not a power panel?
Okay, so, well, all right. First of all, Fridays are by definition a power panel. Right. If this was a Friday, we'd have dropped it 17 seconds ago. Secondly, power panels used to be 4 people. Now they're down to 3 people. So, again, this could qualify just depending on the day. And that's it. It's mainly arbitrary and made up. Just keeping it clear. We do have a lot of amazing stories for you guys today. Of course, Trump was in Phoenix. Let's see if my opinion on that surprises you. Okay, McConnell and Trump in a massive political knife fight. And that one has enormous implications. That's probably my favorite story of the day.
It's a great political story.
Yeah, and I mean, it's so interesting on so many different levels, including who at the end is winning.
Right.
With the crowd. It's just amazeballs all around. And then in the second hour, we have horrific stories / amusing stories from all across the world, including a 14-year-old doing the Macarena in Saudi Arabia. How did that turn out? And then a poor kid getting killed in Philippines, which just lit the whole country on fire. So amazing, fascinating stories in the news today. Michael Shore leading the proceedings.
Yeah, we'll lead off with our esteemed president. He was in Arizona last night, and I had a chance to cover him in Arizona when he was there. And I will say that for having covered Trump and Sanders and all the other candidates, the places where both Trump and Sanders seem to attract to me the most memorable crowds in both their fervor and their excitement was curiously Arizona. So it doesn't surprise me that the night after giving what was supposed to be a somber and important speech with some details, but mostly lacking any details on Afghanistan, whether there will be a surge or not, the president then sort of did a pivot back to what we came to know as campaigning Donald Trump. This is his favorite venue. He can say whatever he wants to a crowd that will accept him for whatever he says. It was no different in Phoenix last night. Here is your president, Donald Trump.
You know, I'd love if the cameras could show this crowd, because it is rather incredible. It is incredible. It is incredible. As everybody here remembers, this was the scene of my first rally speech, right? The crowds were so big, almost as big as tonight, that the people said right at the beginning, you know, there's something special happening here. How about all week they're talking about the massive crowds that are going to be outside? Where are they? Well, it's hot out. It is hot. I think it's too warm. You know, they show up in the helmets and the black masks, and they've got clubs and they've got everything. Antifa!
This is the off-the-cuff, freewheeling Donald Trump. Nomi Jank, I want to show you, before we get into this discussion about what we just listened to, the crowds. He was talking about how these crowds almost bigger than when he was first here. Well, let's see that, Mr. President. Yeah. Almost bigger. That was the empty back of the arena where he was speaking. I think that this is clearly a place where he is most comfortable. The night before, less than 24 hours earlier, he opened his speech on foreign policy by saying, we have to come together as one. We are one people. We are one country. It was a segue out of the Charlottesville talk and into talking about what we need to do in Afghanistan. A different guy showed up the next night.
Yeah, of course. Well, look, when he was in the Afghanistan speech, I kept mocking him for being on the prompter. And it's not because, like the Republicans with Obama, they discovered a thing called the teleprompter. And they're like, oh my God, it turns out the president's reading. Yeah, I know. They've been doing it a long time. It's just that it's particularly stark with Trump because when he's not reading, it's obvious. He wasn't reading today. It wasn't on a prompter. And part of why the crowd loved it so much, so it's got a huge downside, because the downside is that you get to hear what Trump actually thinks. The upside is that his crowd loves it. I mean, the guy's a classic carnival barker. So when he's like, Antifa! I feel like I'm in I feel like I'm in WWE, WrestleMania 27, right?
But if you were out there and you've both been around these Trump people, I don't believe that they know what Antifa is.
No.
I think they just want to listen to this guy vamp.
And I think that's interesting because if this were Hillary people, he was screaming Hillary people. It would actually help him. But Antifa, his people don't really know what Antifa is. The Antifa people are going to feel more fueled. In fact, I think more people are joining Antifa. I think he's so unfamiliar with the out-left, as Neera Tanden likes to call it, and Joy Reid likes to call it, and Donald Trump likes to call it. He's so unfamiliar with that populist left that didn't go to his side that he actually might be fueling the fire that could take him down eventually. And furthermore, if this is his base, if Arizona is like his loyal base and that was his crowd in Arizona, I would be worried if I were Donald Trump. Because that was a convention center. That was not a stadium.
Right.
I've lived in Arizona. That is not a large place to give a rally. So he should be very concerned about his support at this point.
Well, U.S. presidents, whoever they've been, certainly in my life, in my conscious life, wherever they go, they draw a crowd. It's not unusual to see a U.S. president draw a huge crowd when he goes on the road. He just turns them into rallies and campaign speeches.
Yeah, and look, it's kind of entertaining to watch Trump. I'll give him that, and that's why The Apprentice rated well for a long time. So that's why it's perfectly normal for a big crowd to show up there and get super excited. Yeah. And look, Antifa's not going to bring him down. Antifa's not a real enough force to have political consequence. And so if you guys are mad at me for saying that, God bless, go forward on that. But Nomi's right that the more you mention them, the bigger they'll grow. So Trump calling them out, going, Antifa!
It was
just only going to help them.
Completely.
Someone meme that or do a GIF or something. Do that, Antifa!
Right. And he's speaking to the people. I'm going to skip to, I guess this is TA1. Is that something we can go to or not? Forgive me. But this is Chris Pickell saying, President Trump flat lying about news orgs turning off live cameras as he complains about fake news. And so what happened last night was the president said to everybody, hey, pointing to the news, nobody watches TV anymore. Nobody watches these people. No, they're all a bunch of liars. Meanwhile, everybody who's hearing about it, watching it on television or watching it somehow, the news continues to show this president.
So he's rewritten a lot of the rules, sometimes for the good, but almost never. Right. So, and here's another rewritten rule. Like it used to be a thing. Like, hey, you don't want your lie to be too brazen or obvious. And politicians lie all the time, but they have subtle, nuanced ways of lying. Trump is just like CNN just turned off their cameras. First of all, how would he know that? He's in the middle of a speech, right? Like, what a bizarre thing to make up. Second of all, they didn't. It's enormously provable whether they turned off the cameras or not.
Yeah.
He just doesn't care as long as he gets a good line, good applause there in the crowd.
It may be, but it's also, sometimes he's speaking to the audience on camera, which still, do they not realize they're watching CNN? Are they watching Fox News?
Well, that's the thing. I think so many of them are watching this on Fox, and then a handful of them are in that hall. They all think he's telling them the truth. That's all they need to hear.
I'll go one step further. I guarantee you that if you polled Trump viewers who were watching him on CNN, and CNN turned off the cameras, half of them would
Yes, they did. Oh, yeah. I was watching. It just went right off. So that was the blatant, right? Then there was the subtle lie, the subtle falsities. Let's go listen to the president talking. He was trying to prove to this crowd that he had empathy for what was going on in Charlottesville when it happened, that the remarks he gave afterwards were by this fake news media, by these horrible people in the middle of that hall, that they were misconstrued somehow. So he went to clarify the record, Donald Trump.
So what I did... I'm really doing this to show you how damn dishonest these people are. So here's what I said, really fast. Here's what I said on Saturday. We're closely following the terrible events unfolding in Charlottesville, Virginia. This is me speaking. We condemn in the strongest possible terms this egregious display of hatred, bigotry, and violence. That's me speaking on Saturday, right after the event.
That's not a lie. Naomi, Jake, that's what he said.
That's true.
That's what he said. Let's hear what else he had to say.
We condemn in the strongest possible terms this egregious display of hatred, bigotry, and violence on many sides. On many sides.
It seems like he left out a phrase there when he was repeating it to the crowd.
Yeah. JR, you think that was an accident?
I didn't hear anything different. What are you guys talking about?
No.
I was in the crowd in Phoenix, and there was something that swept over us.
You must have been watching CNN. That's what happened to you. And that's what he does. So for this audience, the ones that are sitting at home watching Fox, the ones that are in that hall, he can go on the air and say, this is what I read. Doesn't it sound perfect? That wasn't what was controversial. If he had stopped right there, probably wouldn't have been talked about as much. Certainly wouldn't have been.
So, look, we've shown poll after poll, even after Charlottesville, 67% of Republicans thought that his reaction was perfectly fine. That's amazing. And so, of course, if he cherry picks one sentence where he denounces Nazis, people go, look at the fake news media criticizing him even though he criticized Nazis. If you try to explain those folks, but he also said that both sides were at fault. When one side was Nazis and the other side was people protesting Nazis, when one side got killed and the other side didn't, you're like, nuance. I don't do nuance.
Yeah.
Antifa!
Politically correct. You guys are so politically correct with your numbers. Oh my God. So, does this work though in terms of calling out his strategy? I think it works for like the sane people who are watching us, who are watching, mainstream media, whatever you want to call it. But does it work for the Trump base? Like, his numbers are going down.
They are going down, and significantly.
Crazy people are going up.
Insignificant, and they're not necessarily going down for the reasons we would think. They're not going down because we keep reminding them what a fool this man can be. They had a whole election campaign to learn that. But they're going down because a lot of Republicans are starting to turn on the president, and I think also because the more that people hear that important people are leaving the reservation, that has an impact on
I'm not sure about that. And I just saw
what are you sure about?
Consult poll where his numbers went back up this week, and they have him all the way at 44%. So
was that taken after the Afghanistan speech?
No, it was taken throughout the week. So some of it didn't even get all of the Charlottesville response in it. To be fair, but so. I don't think that people care about important Republicans leaving. I think they kind of hate important Republicans.
No, I think the Republicans that voted for him reluctantly, I think that matters to them. And there were enough of them that had put him over.
And it might have an effect on, if there's this psychological effect of so many Republicans that are lockstep Republicans, distancing themselves from Trump, and he's firing people left and right. It's that security within the Republican Party. They would rather have the Republican Party secure to defeat the Democrats and Antifa and Bernie Sanders than, keep Trump.
So here's my sense of it. I think that the crowd, and I don't mean just the crowd in Arizona, I mean his base loves this stuff. They like that he's entertaining. They consider this honest. It's that great Rand Paul line that he told me, I don't know why he's never said it on TV, but where he said Trump's got the truth-telling without the truth. It has the appearance of truth-telling. Oh, let me tell you how it is, okay? And he's not talking like a standard politician, and then he'll just give you one lie after another, which is...
But it's the audience too, Cenk. It's the people, because, to be fair, most politicians, presidents, people that we've looked at through these same glasses, they also tell the truth without telling the truth. I mean, there are lots of obfuscations and lies and all.
But they look fake doing
but
it.
His audience,
it's a giant difference.
I don't think so, because we've fallen for it for years and years, generations and generations.
We're done with it.
This is a different audience that's falling for it. And we're not done with it because look who won. I mean, we're not done with it at all.
But they don't also believe him either. I mean, there's been polling out saying, "Do you believe what Donald Trump said?"
They sort of
and they're like, "No, but we don't care because
it's
he's
called the
draining the swamp
personality. Yeah.
or whatever."
I know, but guys, that's what I'm talking about. I don't mean we're done with the lying. I mean, this guy perfected it in a sense. I mean, we're done with the fake, like the polished. I do the guy. This is how we're going to mean we're the honorable gentlemen from Connecticut and Nebraska. Right. People hate it. They hate it. That's the only reason Trump is popular is because he's the opposite of that. So a lot of people criticizing this speech vociferously, and we have our own criticism, obviously, including that he's making stuff up. But overall, I thought it was an effective speech to keep his base.
Well, speeches like this are how he won the presidency. So everybody who says they're not effective is wrong because he's the president. And this is what he did constantly during the election. And I don't think that you're right. I find the Trump presidency will be an anomaly, not a norm. I find that his success was based largely on his celebrity and the cult of personality, and once he goes away, so too will that, and there will be a return to something that was more similar to the I do declare than to this guy.
Yeah.
I think I
totally disagree on that, but that's okay.
That's fine. And I don't think we're going to get an I do declare all the time.
We've got a lot of them, guys. We've got a lot of them
and most of the people are, because that's the discipline. The discipline is I do declare. In any case, and we're not naming names here. How's this for a segue? Neither did the president. Last night, President Trump, one of the sort of overriding elephants in the room last night was the fact that Jeff Flake, the senator from Arizona, the junior Republican senator who's going to be primary challenged by someone that vocally is being supported by Donald Trump, he's from Arizona. His name was in the room. John McCain as well, who didn't vote for the president's health care plan. Well, that plan is generous on my part, but whatever, the bill that they put up. And so Donald Trump a lot of people wondered if he was going to call them out, and here's what he didn't do.
They all said, "Mr. President, your speech was so good last night. Please, Mr. President, don't mention any names." So I won't. No, I won't vote. One vote away, I will not mention any names. Very presidential, isn't it? Very presidential. And nobody wants me to talk about your other senator, who's weak on borders, weak on crime. So I won't talk about him. Nobody wants me to talk about him. Nobody knows who the hell he is. And now, see, I haven't mentioned any names, so now everybody's happy.
Yeah, that's grade A entertainment right there.
Yeah.
Okay, so the good news from him is that base loves it. They love it when he ignores the advice of his advisors and counsel. They love it when he attacks people, even if it's fellow Republicans. So those boos for Flake, you're like, oh, boo, Jeff Flake!
From a room full of people who almost certainly voted for Jeff Flake.
Almost all of them. And no question.
And by the way, Jeff Flake has voted for 93% of the things that Donald Trump wants.
Right.
So, and against Obama.
But in terms of political strategy, that's a nightmare. So it might be okay for Trump, although that again has its limits. But for the Republican Party overall, this guy's a suicide bomber. He went into the party and he's like, okay, I'm going to destroy McConnell, McCain, Collins, Murkowski, Flake. Now, is it in service of getting anything passed? No, nothing ever gets passed, and it's less likely to get passed now. But Allahu Akbar. Right?
Yeah.
So.
And the interesting thing about Arizona is there's this very strong, it's a libertarian state. This is not exactly the same as Donald Trump's base, even though there's an overlap and they're very passionate there. These are people who voted for Jeff Flake and for John McCain. And John McCain did have a tough race a couple of years ago, but they voted for them because they were worried about government waste, that's also why Bernie Sanders did so well. He talked about economics. These are economic voters. Jeff Flake is the guy who does the government waste booklet every year, or the one with there were shrimp on treadmills, the government wasted, $10 million on that. That's the guy who does that, and people love it. They eat it up, and come election time...
The shrimp or the rhetoric?
The rhetoric.
Okay.
I don't think anybody loves the shrimp on treadmill.
Well, not in Arizona, by the way.
Yeah, I was going to say, the last place you want to have shrimp.
I've
In the middle of
tried
the
it.
desert. Okay, so, look, the media criticized the speech as unhinged. I don't think so. I think it was as hinged as Trump is. I think it's the same thing that we saw in the campaign. I don't think it was any more unhinged than normal. Yes, he attacked the media over and over. Yes, he lied. But that's Trump 101, so I'm not at all surprised by that. But at the end of the day, was it an effective speech? Effective in rallying his base, yes. But for the Republican Party overall and actually passing policy, it was just a stupid way to go. Right. And because those guys, there's an excellent chance that they're all going to lose their re-elections. Because now the Democrats certainly don't like the Jeff Flakes and the Mitch McConnells of the world. And now half the Republicans don't like them. That's a terrible idea for how to win elections.
Yeah, the Senate electoral map, it still favors the Republicans, and it's a great year, 2018, for Republican senators. But if this kind of thing keeps happening, Jeff Flake was not supposed to be a vulnerable senator. He's popular there. He was a congressman there. Yes, the makeup of Arizona is beginning to mirror Nevada a little bit in the way that people are moving to Arizona. It's a different kind of more leaning
blue in 2006.
Yeah, leaning blue, and so there are opportunities there. But this is not the way to play the politics, and it's also not the time to rally the base. There's nothing around which to rally. A year ago, he was running for president. There's no policy that he's taking on the road, which is typically when you do rally the base, right? When you get them making phone calls. It's August. They're going to get a senator's office and say, hey, the president, there's nothing going on, right?
It is no strategy behind
There's not. That's what I'm saying. So you're talking about rallying the base. Great, you rallied the base.
But I don't understand. Why did he do it the day after his Afghanistan speech, which you had stupid members of the mainstream media saying, oh, he sounded presidential? I don't get it.
Yeah, but enough of them said that he didn't, too. Enough of them had a lot of problems with the way he engaged Pakistan and India there. So I don't think that was such a great, as they say, home run for the president, even from many people watching the media. But he thought it was. So he goes, on the heels of his great statesmanship the night before, he says, I'm going to go out down to the country and rally behind that. Of course, this was planned before the other. But
yeah, we're overanalyzing. Yeah. It's just for his ego. He just loves to hear
well, that's it, right, of course. But maybe that's why they did the night before when they did it, so he could then take it to Arizona. One of the familiar themes, this was all about the familiar themes that he brings out to these rallies, was, of course, building the wall, something that he talks about all the time, but also to the Arizona audience. And here's Donald Trump talking about his wall.
And we are building a wall on the southern border, which is absolutely necessary. Build that wall. Now, the obstructionist Democrats would like us not to do it, but believe me, we have to close down our government. We're building that wall.
If we have to close down the government, I mean, you can talk about the I do declare people, but they're watching that, and they're the ones in the government right now, and they're being threatened by their president that if we don't build the wall, we're going to shut the government down, which is the least responsible thing. Every Republican will tell them that. Every Democrat will tell them that.
Oh, he doesn't care.
And he doesn't care. No, of course he doesn't.
He might shut down the government. Look, he bluffs a lot, but he might not be bluffing about this because he doesn't understand the consequences. So in order for you to be nervous about a bluff, you have to be cognizant of the fact that you could lose your whole pile. You could lose all your money if you go all in this analogy, right? He's not cognizant of that at all. He's like, what? This is money? What do you mean? Like, what game are we playing, right?
He doesn't have leverage here.
Right, yeah.
He doesn't have leverage in this situation because if he, yes, they're going to have a budget. Nobody wants there to be a government shutdown as a result. But he just went through this with healthcare, and it didn't work then, and it's not going to work with the Republicans now because guess what? That guy he's demonizing is going to stand up and say, I know Arizona more than anybody here. I know that, guess what? The border wall is already there. Yeah. And John McCain and Jeff Flake will have to go to the border and show, here's this border wall that already exists on the border to Arizona. Go to Texas. They've got a river. Yeah. They need a wall.
So as I've said many times, this idea of carrots and sticks is perfectly good politics, and you could play hardball and threaten someone's re-election and get them to maybe buckle, and if you get rid of them, it sends a message to others. But in order to do that, you have to do that in a strategic and smart way, which Trump is absolutely incapable of. So, for example, two of the people he threatens most are John McCain and Lisa Murkowski. They just had elections. They won't be up for 6 years when John McCain will be 184 years old. Right? So it's such a stupid, empty threat. He doesn't know what he's doing. And on the government shutdown, people will say to him, "Oh, Mr. President, you can't shut the government down. That would ruin our credit, and it would spike interest rates, and it could hurt the economy and stuff." He's like, "What? Did you just tell me I can't do it?" Okay? And there's some chance he'd do it.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't understand the consequences and doesn't care.
He also probably in the back of his mind thinks, well, if the government shut down, the Senate and the House are too, and then they can't impeach me. So
That's a fair point.
There's a way he does it. Finally, from Arizona, one of the other topics that had been bandied about during the day was that Sheriff Joe Arpaio, the very divisive, racist, and I would say overbearing former sheriff of Maricopa County, there where Houston sits. The question is whether or not he's going to be pardoned after having been indicted. They said that the president will not address this, so of course the president, being the president, did this.
Was Sheriff Joe convicted for doing his job? That's what. He should have had a jury, but you know what? I'll make a prediction. I think he's going to be just fine, okay? But I won't do it tonight because I don't want to cause any controversy. Is that okay? All right? But Sheriff Joe can feel good.
Far be it from him from pointing, starting controversy. Sheriff Joe can feel good.
Okay, so a couple of things about this. First, Young Turks did a story about this yesterday, and Andrew Jones pointed out that in order to get a pardon, you have to go through a great number of steps, including saying you did do it and being contrite about it. Sheriff Joe's appealing the conviction right now. He doesn't admit responsibility at all. You have to serve 5 years in prison. He hasn't gone to prison. He doesn't even face 5 years. He faces a maximum of 6 months. It says you can't do this pardon in any way, shape, or form. But Trump doesn't know that.
And it's likely why he didn't do it last night. He's going to be fine. So he's going to lean on some prosecutor. I also said that he was indicted, but he was in fact, of course, convicted. And that's all they wanted to hear. They don't need the facts. They don't need to hear.
And the press isn't, and they're buying into it. If there's one thing Donald Trump does know, it's the press. And so it was an entire story yesterday for hours on CNN. Will you or will you not pardon Joe Arpaio? God forbid somebody actually use their fact checkers to figure this out.
You're a news organization. You are the fact checkers. Find out how you do a pardon, or just watch our video from yesterday. So the other thing about this is that the advisors got half the most brutal job, and I have no sympathy for them because they work for Donald Trump. But whatever they tell him, they're like, okay, now, man-child president, we're going to tell you can't pardon Joe Arpaio in the speech tonight, so don't bring it up. Okay, I'm going to go. Sarah Huckabee Sanders says, I'm going to go tell the press you're not bringing it up tonight. Okay, yep, okay, got you, Sarah. Okay, I got it. So they tell me I can't mention it, but I'm a man-child, so I'm going to tell you about it anyway. Saying that you're not allowed to talk about it and talking about it is talking about it.
See, I think he does it intentionally. I think I think all of them are in on it. It's a messaging ploy. Like, get them excited, get in the press, distract away from the criticisms about the Afghanistan speech, distract away from whatever thing he did 20 minutes before, and now we can talk about his speech and say, but I'm not going to do it now. Get a big applause line. I'll come back later for it, maybe. Or
no, I agree with you that Trump's doing it on purpose. Partly because they told him he can, and he is a man-child, but partly because it does work. People love that. He's a rebel, right? But I don't think his advisors are in on the ploy. Because
I think Roger Stone is.
Yeah. Oh, some are. Yes. Yeah. But most of the advisors, if you believe the leaks, are like, oh, for Christ's sake! Like, what did we just tell you? Yeah. You can sense of what the advisors think of him when he was on the Truman balcony looking at the solar eclipse without the glasses. They're like, Joe, look! you only say that if you think the guy's an idiot. Right. You see what I'm saying? Like, you don't have to tell Obama that. You don't have to tell, I imagine even Reagan. Right? Like, they know you. Like, they're on pins and needles. He's going to do something stupid. Oh, I knew it. Don't look.
Right. Also, presidents are examples. Obama and Reagan would know. You put the glasses on, even if you don't want to. If you want to look around, because people are going to be watching, because you're the president. And it also, I think, speaks to the fact that John Kelly has not yet made a difference, in the White House. Nor do we expect to. We'll get to something a little bit more about that quickly. We have to take a break, but quickly, I want to talk to you about some of the crowds last night. You heard the president talk about how big the crowds were. Here, of course, Twitter, abuzz with it. Republican Twitter showing us images like this. Huge crowds. Look at those people outside of where the Cleveland Cavaliers won the NBA championship in 2016. That is not the Trump rally, even though it was put out there as if it was that. It doesn't look at all like Arizona, but that was the kind of message that was going around, when in fact the Trump rally sizes looked a little bit more like this. Here are some of the images of what was really going on, but there was no basketball being played. There were, however, protests outside, and some of them got a little ugly. Trump, in a way, in those first remarks, I think, and you can play some of it behind this, but so got to talking about those people outside almost like he continues to incite, as he did during the election, this kind of activity. He loves when it happens, and this is what's happening outside afterwards. Protesters, and some of the backlash was pretty harsh as well.
Yeah, so the two different issues. One is the memes that the Republicans are putting out. So the conservatives are putting out that picture of the Cavaliers stadium pretending that it was the Trump rally from yesterday. And then, ironically, they'll go call everybody else fake news. It's just projection. It's a way to muddy the water. They know that what they do is lie after lie, and then they know that if they accuse the other side of lying, you'll be confused enough to call it 50-50. It's actually, in that sense, a smart strategy.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to the reaction here from the protesters of Trump, by all accounts, the cops did the pepper balls that they threw in there, which sounds funny, when people try to move the barricades, the protesters did, after Trump is done. Well, if that is accurate, I side with the cops. When you've got the president, or as much as we dislike him, he is the president and he's in the building, and you've got a large crowd who fervently dislikes him trying to move the barricades out of the way, and even if you're not worried about the president, you've got the president's supporters coming out, that's a potentially really ugly situation. Now, as to the amount of force being used, I have no way of judging that, right? I don't know if that was too much, too little, etc. I don't think it was too little because it worked.
Yeah.
But don't move the barricades. That's a really bad idea.
Having been in those situations before, covering them, and as a protester, sometimes they use the excuse of you've moved the barricades and you're in a situation. We covered this in January. I was at there was a protest in front of Trump Tower in New York City where all of the protesters were being contained in an area and the reporters in the same area, and they couldn't move. And the barricades were moving because there were 400 people in a block that were being contained, and so they're moving, and it escalates that way. Granted, the New York City Police, which is by no means an example for how you handle crowds, and they have their own issues. I think they're a little bit more used to this than the Arizona Police Department, which I worked in Arizona. I did a lot of campaign work there. That's a city, the mayor is a Democratic mayor, Mayor Stanton. They held events prior to Trump coming out where they had all these Democrats lined up, elected officials, Ruben Gallego, representative, giving speeches. So they were prepared for this. I wonder if this was the state police or the city police. I can't really tell, because that actually does play a factor into this kind of stuff, how you handle protests.
But we haven't seen this type of reaction to presidents in a very long time. I mean, probably since George H.W. Bush after, going into Afghanistan and Iraq. And even then it was different than the tenor here, and it wasn't everywhere, which doesn't mean it shouldn't have been. But so this kind of thing happening where the president is inside giving this glorious speech to these, sycophants it's pretty amazing.
Let me just one last thing on this. Look, I'm not on both sides of the issue. I'm trying to thread the needle on being
both sides, many sides.
No, on what is the right and appropriate reaction.
Sure.
So Nomi is clearly right about the situation she went through, and that does happen from time to time. At the same time, those cops got to be thinking, oh my God, look at what happened in Charlottesville. I have got to maintain order here. And I've got pretty sizable crowds on both sides. Maybe they're not as large as Trump makes them out to be, or the Republicans do, but you got a decent-sized crowd on Trump's side, and certainly a decent-sized crowd of protesters. If those guys meet, we're going to have mayhem. So that's a really tough situation for the cops to be in. So let's keep it real on that. Now, on the other side, I will say, generally speaking, the cops in America have an enormous right-wing protester bias. What I mean by that is, if you've got right-wing protesters, time to put on the kids' gloves, right? Oh, okay, wait. Bundy guys, they've got guns and they're pointing it at our heads. Well, let's nice and easy. Nazis rallying, they should protect their right to march, even though it's maddening and infuriating, but it's a free speech issue, and the courts asked them to do that in Charlottesville. Having said that, my God, kids' gloves all around. The next day, the kid shows up, and he got kicked out of his college. I don't think he should have, but to honor the Confederacy, he's got a giant long gun on him and a handgun. And as the cops are escorting him out, and he didn't do anything wrong, and the cops are just trying to protect him. But they let him in the cop car with the gun.
Oh my God!
Like, there's no way a black guy is getting let into a cop car with a gun when people that were aligned with him, he didn't do it, okay, but ideologically aligned with him, just killed someone the day before. There's no way, right? So every time there's a left-wing protest, there we go, no problem, batons, pepper gas, etc. Right-wing protest, oh, yo, be careful. So, I mean, almost every time. So that's also the reality of America.
Yep. And we're going to see it continue to play out. When we come back, we are going to have more on this. We're going to talk to James Clapper. We'll talk to Valerie Plame. We'll talk to Mitch McConnell. We have a great list of guests. Come on back after the break.
I went to Kentucky Fried Chicken when I first got my license, like 17 years old, or 78, or whatever it was. And I'm driving, I think, my dad's Oldsmobile, and I parked it in a place where there was two cars next to me, a really tight spot, and a car behind me. I don't even know how I got in there, because I'm a terrible driver. Back then, I was an even worse driver. And on the roads, I'm okay, but in parking spots, I have terrible spatial reasoning, and I'm a mess. And on my way out, I hit all three cars at once. I broke all records, okay? So I went, as I'm backing out, I went, boom, oh shit. And this side hit that car, this side hit this car, and the back hit the third car, okay? And I got stuck. I didn't know how to get out. Like, I went, okay, this, and then I'm like, no, and then, right? And then finally I had to stop, go inside the KFC and go, I'm sorry, I hit a bunch of your cars. They're like, what do you mean a bunch of your cars? I'm like, I don't know. Wow, there's a B? Yeah. I'm like, I hit three cars. I don't know. So you guys got to come help me, okay? Okay, so one, my bad. Really sorry about that. Okay, number two, can someone take my car out? Because I don't want to keep hitting your cars, and I'm incapable of taking it out of this platform.
Hey, Jake, what's up?
Aaron, I forgot my email password. What is it?
EASSWORD.
Welcome back to TYT Sports. Jason and Francis here. This is where everybody has to listen. Welcome to TYT Sports, everybody. I am your host, Francis Maxwell. Jason here. Welcome to TYT Sports. Dirk and Jerk. TYT Sports. Steph Curry signed with Under Armour. Tom Brady's mad, by the way. Did you hear me? Fight on TYT Sports. Actually, there's a link in the description box below instead of lying about in the description box below. And it's a throw another picture of the UK bacon. And another. And if I throw in another one, I think your belly.
All right, back on the Young Turks.
Gotta explain why we're laughing. To the tune of tequila.
Someone tweeted out an Antifa video. It's doing it again. All right, I'm ruining it.
With the tune of tequila, right? So let me read a bunch of comments for you guys that are fun. Combabus writes, and last night 45 was speaking out of many sides of his mouth. Many sides. That's really funny. Admiral Marston says, Combabus, you get a t-shirt. You got a LOL on that one. ShopTYT.com for merch. Admiral Marston says his loyal base won't be bothered by what they are being told are bad Republicans by Trump because he's the dear leader and he's 100% honest, at least to them. They feel that way. Jay says, Michael, sure, there was no elephant in the room. It's on a beach eating peanuts in New Jersey. That's not right, Jay. That's not right. Okay. Chris Bradshaw says, so this is what Trump looks like when he thinks he's being clever. Yep. Joshua Olson says, Jake, I hope that Nomi is on Old School tonight. Please make it happen. Interesting. We do have a very special progressive guest for you guys on Old School. I hadn't...
Not me.
Yes. No, we hadn't discussed it. But we'll tell you after the next break. Anyway, the random progressive in town is Adam Green from P Triple.
Oh, yeah. Why didn't he tell me this?
Yeah, no.
I'm going to write him a note.
Right? So, and he's going to stop in and do Old School tonight. So that's fun for everybody. TYTnetwork.com/join to become a member to get Old School. It's a great show. And finally, Woke Poppy says, TYT needs an I do declare t-shirt ASAP. We are #2strong.
Woke Poppy would get a free one every day, too.
I love Woke Poppy.
Yeah, everybody does. All right,
let's wrap up the Trump stuff. But there's some interesting things that came up afterwards, and from, I think, some important people to hear from. James Clapper, the former director of National Intelligence, was on. CNN didn't have their cameras on all night until James Clapper showed up. James Clapper came in, talked to Don Lemon, and he had some stern things to say about the reality of being apprehensive at best about this president.
I don't know when I've listened and watched something like this from a president that I found more disturbing. Having some understanding of the levers of power that are available to a president if he chooses to exercise them, I found this downright scary and disturbing.
Are you questioning his fitness?
Yes, I do. I really question his ability to his fitness to be in this office, and I also am beginning to wonder about his motivation for it. Maybe he is looking for a way out.
Is he a threat to national security, the president?
Well, he certainly could be. Again, having some understanding of the levers that a president can exercise, I worry about, frankly, the access to nuclear codes. If he, in a fit of pique, he decides to do something about Kim Jong-un, there's actually very little to stop him.
A fit of pique. That's reacting with resentment to somebody slighting you in any way. It seems like he would be completely prone to that.
Yeah, so this is part of the reason I'm annoyed at Trump for making me agree with guys like James Clapper. I got no love for Clapper. He lied about warrantless wiretapping of the American people. I thought he was flippant about the drone strikes that killed civilians. I think he was one of my least favorite people in the Obama administration by a long shot, and I think he's been part of the establishment in all the worst ways. But having said that, in this case, he's clearly right. The guy has moments of pique, where he gets agitated. And Clapper, having been part of the director of national intelligence, knows that there isn't very much stopping the president from launching nukes. So if he wants to do it in a moment of emotional outburst. He could do it. And boy, that's a super scary thought, because you know he has them. And then at some point, I mean, is everybody supposed to resign? You can't. He can push the button. And the fact that Trump can push the button is enormously scary.
But this is not new. This is not new news. This is something that people have been saying since Hillary Clinton was running against him. I hear him. I agree with you. But to reiterate the same things we've been saying over and over, I mean, at what point will it make a difference? I mean, it's already causing hysteria. I mean, we can call it what it is. The markets are going up and down, up and down. Sometimes they're okay, sometimes they're not okay. I mean, is that how CNN is trying to create hysteria, or is it having hysteria on the streets? I mean, I think this is just the same thing over and over. At what point are we going to have enough James Clappers on CNN for CNN to say it's time?
It may not come, but it may come by having people who have the ability, the levers of power that he refers to do something about this presidency. I want to go, this is a little self-indulgent of me, but I saw Jim Fallow's a tweet storm, is that what they call it when it's a lot in a row, a tweet storm? Jim Fallows writes for The Atlantic. He's a fantastic journalist. He agrees with us on just about everything. And this is, and hence he's great. This is, I'm going to read these quickly. You're going to watch them as I read them. This is what Jim Fallows had to say after the speech. I've heard presidential speeches from JFK onward, some good, some bad, some memorable, some boring, some too long, and some elegantly short. Some I agreed with, some made me grit my teeth, some read from prompter, some improvised on through any some pair you want. And in some of them, presidents have let their anger seep through the normal pose of presidential distance. See the thoughts of R. Nixon. And then we move on those whose support he needs, starting with McCain and Flake and extending around the world. And then we have ex-Sheriff Joe. Effectively, Trump promised to pardon Arpaio. Whether he'll realize that tomorrow, who knows? Imagine if Eisenhower gave these winks about those resisting school integration in Little Rock, or JFK about Bull Connor. This is not how presidents have ever sounded before. It struck me because I like his writing, but it through the scope of history, what we're dealing with, and this goes back to our I do declare conversation, and how I hope that this presidency is an anomaly compared to some of those other presidencies. Eisenhower did declare, Obama did declare, but I do think that there is something about the way that this guy operates that when I hear Jim Fallows put it in that context, it's just really important to appreciate.
Well, I think that what Clapper was getting at, to Nomi's point, is what is different. He said, he questions his fitness. That is a thing that's now rising as a talking point from the establishment, which means that there are things building behind the scenes. They didn't get there before. They're there now. And it's one thing for Clapper, who was in Obama's administration, to say it. It's another thing when Bob Corker last week said it. He questioned the president's stability and his fitness for office, his competence. That's a very Republican senator from a very Republican state saying that. And so when Clapper says maybe he's looking for a way out, whether they amount to anything or not, there's definitely talk behind the scenes in Washington about how do we get this guy out? He's a danger. Yeah. He's not a danger to the establishment anymore. If he was, there'd be a part of me that found that interesting, right? Not in this way, right? But he's a danger to the Republic and to the world. Because, it's one thing when Clapper authorizes drone strikes that are way out of bounds. It's another thing when you authorize a nuclear strike that's out of bounds.
And we will have a little bit more behind the scenes when we come back. This one takes us to Mitch McConnell and his dealings with Donald Trump. You're watching The Young Turks.
For me. I started off in Brooklyn. My father gave me a small loan of $1 million. All my life, I was told no.
He said I had small hands. They're not small, I never heard that one before.
I saw a picture of John. I was like, look at this fucking badass Viking he met on his trip. I was like, oh wait, that's John.
Yeah.
His beard is so gross. I swear to God, I didn't recognize him.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was like a dude from up there, like a Viking-looking dude from up there.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, we've got our own Viking. Look at Johnny Pie. Johnny Pie, we miss you, big guy. And he was at Svalbard. We were talking about how he was going to go get the grains if he's the last person on Earth, and he's going to, or among the last people on that ship, and repopulate the Earth after North Korea. At least he's got the grains. He knows where it is. He can find it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't worry. Humanity will be saved. Yet again by a white male, John Idaho.
Hey, Jen, what's up? And I want to do a YouTube live clip, but not live. Go.
Nerds rule the world. Nerds rule the world. Nerds rule the world. Nerds rule the world. Welcome to the Nerd Life.
Welcome to Nerd Alert, everyone. We have an exciting show for you this week.
Glad to communicate with all the nerds out there.
What's beautiful about geeks is geeks are open to everybody. That's the thing. It's like, so you got your thing, I got my thing. It's like, and if you're not, then you're a bad geek.
Why did you choose Battlestar Galactica? Because it's awesome? No kidding. The floor is not lava. Yoshi! Oh, my nightmare! And there's one very special characteristic that many men have been interested in. Penis size. What's up, friend?
Yeah, I know that curve.
And that movie is the Valentine's Day romantic classic, Deadpool.
Whoa, wait a second, Doc. You mean to tell me this is a nerd alert?
That's right, Marty. We've entered a nerd alert.
Isn't that right? How can you improve pizza? With math, of course.
If we spilled goldfish crackers on the floor and we didn't want to clean them up, so we thought that if we stomped on them an infinite amount of time, they would mathematically cease to exist.
We are ready for a Wonder Woman movie. Oh, wait, no, let me correct myself. We were ready for a Wonder Woman movie years ago.
I'm Joss Whedon, and you're watching Nerd Alert.
Church, Jank, Michael, and Nomi with you guys today. Some great tweets again today in this segment. Rye writes in, by the way, hashtag TYT Live to talk to us during the show on Twitter. You can also use YouTube Super Chat. I'm going to get to that in a second. But Rye tweeted in, I worry more about Trump after he's been in office. He's so boastful, not sure what would stop him from revealing U.S. secrets. I mean, look, if he knows any secrets, he's about to reveal them whether he's in or out of office.
He has, actually.
And
he's had a few tweets where he's like,
that's true.
released information.
You get the feeling that he doesn't even know all the secrets because they don't want to tell them.
Oh, no way. No way. I guarantee there's a conversation like this in the something like this, as you'll see. Should we tell him who really killed JFK? Oh, no. No way.
We would know about aliens at this point if Trump actually knew.
Oh my God! Well, that's the one upside. That's the one upside. If he government's hiding something, we're going to find out soon enough.
Right.
Because Trump can't hide it. They're like,
Yeah.
he's like, Area 51, it's true. Oh my God.
And there'd be a rally there.
Yeah.
They built a wall.
All right, Sean McNamara writes in, love the first hour today. Best panelists, best conversations, 10 out of 10. Oh, look at that. Rock and roll. And Hans asks, if Trump is removed from office, do you think the country will move into complacency because of the lesser evil? Look, man, if Trump's thrown out of office, more likely he'll resign. There'll be mayhem. So I don't think we'll get complacency. My prediction is the establishment media powers down. They're like, oh, Pence, everything's fine. Let's do giant tax cuts. So we're back to regular order, right?
There is the real possibility that happens, right? That they get lulled into this sense of, that episode's behind us. Anything else is better. And then it's Mike Pence gets a free pass.
Definitely. Like, I would be shocked if that didn't happen. But that's the media. The country's a different thing, right? And so the Trump guys will be furious. They'll be mad at the Republicans. Then the Democratic establishment will want to go back to regular course of order as well. But the progressives will say no. I mean, we've yet begun to fight.
It's a little bit like what happened after Nixon. We have stories to get to, but everybody thought, the Ford would have an easy time, but it was roiled. I mean, people were at each other all the time.
So we need Pence to resign first, like Agnew resigned.
Right. Yeah.
Find something on him, guys.
But who would he pick? Right.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. There are no good choices.
He would pick Lou Barletta. He would pick some horrible congressperson.
Yeah. All right. Dave from Super Chat wrote in. I just want to say this because it's fun. I want Cenk to be my cousin. Okay.
Why your cousin, not your brother?
I know. But that's much better these days because these days I'm getting a lot of I wish you were my dad.
Oh.
So
you are a father.
Cousin makes you younger.
Yeah, cousin makes me younger. I'll take cousin. Okay.
All right, cuz. We go now to Mitch McConnell, the majority leader of the Senate. An article by Alex Burns and Jonathan Martin in the New York Times, talking about what is going on behind the scenes in the Senate, how McConnell and the president have been fuming at each other, both directly and out of each other's earshot. It's fascinating political stuff because a lot of what has to happen for the president to be able to, quote unquote, do well is to get some of these things like tax cuts and infrastructure passed in some way. And McConnell does not like what the president's doing to some of his colleagues. This is Mitch McConnell saying President Trump, or this is the article, President Trump and Senator Mitch McConnell have not spoken to each other in weeks. And McConnell has privately expressed uncertainty that Mr. Trump will be able to salvage his administration after a series of summer crises. And I think it's important that we talk about Mitch McConnell saying this, because Mitch McConnell has for a long time been someone who is saying, stay the course, everything's going to be all right, we're on the same page, we want to get the same things done. But now he's saying he doesn't see this president perhaps making it work.
Yeah, this is definitely something way more significant than we've had before, where you've got not just one particular Republican senator. So McCain never liked him, Lindsey Graham never liked him, except when he's declaring war. They're like, yes, right? But Mitch McConnell just wants to get to the tax cuts already, right? He just wants to be able to get some policy wins for his donors. So for him to talk about how the Republican president might not make it to the end, that's amazing. Now, it's only not amazing because it's Trump, but for it to have happened to any other president would be unbelievable. It would be the biggest news story there was maybe in their entire term. If their own majority leader turned on him and thought, you shouldn't finish the term. Imagine if Harry Reid said that about Obama. I mean, oh my God.
These things aren't said. I mean, that Mitch McConnell in his position of power, Nomi, is saying these things. It's unprecedented so far in these 8 months that we've had this.
I guess my question is, okay, great, and what leverage do you have against Trump? Because if they block anything, it just helps the Democrats, which are at their weakest point since 1929, and then it hurts their reelection. They're in this stuck, they're just stuck in this position, just as the centrist Democrats, I think, are as well. Because if they side with the centrist Republicans,
here's the thing. I think what it does is that it's, every kind of drip of away from Trump, drip, probably not the right sort of example, but I'm just saying that any time you see a weakening of this president and his standing on Capitol Hill, it hurts him, exponentially now that Mitch McConnell says this. What's going to happen is probably nothing, because as Cenk told us before, and he'll tell us now, Mitch McConnell's not going to do anything about this. He wants to get things passed. He's still a conservative Republican. What did he say, Cenk, that you would tell us?
So he after the New York Times story came out and it became huge news, he then put out a statement, McConnell, that's saying, no, the president and I are working towards our shared goals. And he talked about fighting ISIS and tax reform. So in other words, we both really, really want those tax cuts. Okay. Yeah. Now, having said that, he's totally full of crap. Of course not. This story is true. It's well sourced. I mean, and it has incredible details, including that when they were on the phone on August 9th, it became, they started cursing at each other and yelling at each other. I don't know McConnell in person. All I've ever seen him is obviously on camera, but he doesn't seem like much of a yeller, more of a, retreating into his shell, the turtle that he is. But if you got McConnell cursing at the president, I don't know if it was back and forth on the cursing and shouting back and forth. That's amazing.
And then on August 10th at 3:54 in the morning, this is the day after, or the very early morning after, Trump tweets, this is TA7, Trump tweets, can you believe that Mitch McConnell, who screamed repeal and replace for 7 years, couldn't get it done? Must repeal and replace Obamacare. So he called them out after whatever their screaming match was. And let's just to go on into the article a little bit more. McConnell has fumed over Mr. Trump's regular threats against fellow Republicans and criticism of Senate rules, and questioned Mr. Trump's understanding of the presidency in a public speech. Mr. McConnell has made sharper comments in private describing Mr. Trump as entirely unwilling to learn the basics of governing. So this is all about Dean Heller, and it's about the senator from Nevada. It's about Jeff Flake. It's about the president publicly calling out his colleagues. Lindsey Graham, the senator from South Carolina, said, hey, we have Article 5 here, an allusion to the NATO rules, where you attack one of us, you attack all of us, certainly within that caucus. That is really probably one of the things that's setting McConnell off.
And my theory is that the only people that it benefits at this point, and I'll get to the Democrats in a second, for impeachment is the centrist Republicans that are in power, because they need their tax cuts no matter what. And Trump is, who knows if he can get it through, if he's going to actually be able to rally this stuff. It's 50-50 for them. But for the Democrats, either way they lose. You impeach Trump, you still get these tax cuts, you still get the Republicans in power. And by the way, they're going to be more effective at getting all the proposals through if we don't win in the midterms, which my guess is we probably won't, because we have no Democratic Party. So the Democrats are screwed no matter what. They've got Trump and his fascism, and then they've got Pence and his Republican agenda just sweeping through easily.
So let's break down McConnell versus Trump, what their different priorities are. So Michael mentioned why McConnell's pissed because he's attacking his fellow Republicans. He's also attacking McConnell over and over, and it's a great point. I hadn't remembered that it was the day after the call that he tweeted that angry tweet about McConnell. And McConnell's also worried about, hey, look, we got to raise the debt ceiling. We have to do just like elementary stuff. And this guy is so stupid that we might not even be able to execute the most elementary stuff because he doesn't know how to govern. He doesn't know anything. Look, remember that Trump was in a meeting with the Senate Republicans when somebody was talking about the tax cuts within the repeal of Obamacare. And he's like, no, tax cuts are later. They're like, no, Mr. President, that's a different bill. Within this bill are also tax cuts. He's like, no, they're not. And they're like, oh my God, he doesn't know anything.
He was shocked.
He doesn't know anything.
What he didn't know about that healthcare bill.
Yes, he's never. Of course, he hasn't read it. He hasn't read a summary of it. He hasn't read any of it.
He doesn't take briefings.
Yeah,
willfully and openly does not take briefings.
Now, so that's why McConnell's upset, because this is an absolute disaster, both for the Republican Party and legislatively. I mean, they can't get anything done. The reason Trump's upset, sure, it's embarrassing that they couldn't repeal Obamacare, even though he promised it, etc. But no. As the New York Times points out, he was even more animated about what he intimated was the Senate leaders' refusal to protect him from investigations of Russian interference in the 2016 election. That's why Trump's mad. He's like, hey, your job is to protect me. And McConnell's like, no, it's not. That's not my job.
Jim Comey got fired for that. Right? I mean, for not protecting the president against it.
And McConnell, look, as a fairly unethical, I've never seen McConnell care about ethics before in my life. As a guy who cares only about winning and politics and who will brazenly switch sides. Filibuster is terrible. The filibuster is great. On and on and on, right? That guy would protect you normally if you were a normal president and you were trying to get things, but he's not going to protect you from a criminal investigation where he would then be culpable. Besides which, how the hell would he even protect you from that? So again, Trump not understanding, McConnell doesn't have anything to do with a special counsel, but he's like, why don't you protect me? And by the way, guys, how guilty is he? He's yelling at everybody, why don't you protect me? Why don't you protect me? From what? If you didn't do anything, why are you so incredibly panicked? You're pulling people over from the side of the road going, why won't you protect me from the Russian investigation?
And if you look at his support among members that supported him early on, they're not out there campaigning for him. They're silent.
Well, that's what I think a month off in August gets you. You're back in your district, and people are starting to say, well, what's even Republicans are saying that they're back home in their districts and they're getting earfuls from their constituents.
Yeah. So last thing on this is what's also really, really important. There are no winners here, except hopefully progressives, and the rest of the country eventually.
Like 10 years.
Right.
Just stay tuned.
But between these two sides, first of all, when Trump loses all the Senate Republicans, as he's in the middle of losing, and nobody protected you from the Russian investigation, and they found real stuff on you, those Senate Republicans are the ones that are going to walk over to the White House and go, you're done, son.
Yeah.
So, especially if you know you did it, as Trump knows, obviously, based on his reactions, right? You idiot! You should be trying to work with those Senate Republicans at all costs. They're your last line of defense. You haven't gotten to that yet. Right now, there's nothing McConnell can do. Later, there's a lot McConnell can do. Right? So antagonizing him today is so monumentally stupid. Thank God for that. Now, on McConnell's side, oh my God, his approval ratings are so abysmal. They're destroyed. Trump ruined them. So in Kentucky, he's down to 18% approval. And Trump's at 60%. Holy cow, he's more than tripling him. So the disapproval for McConnell in Kentucky is 74%. I've never seen numbers like this
and
for
when
a majority
Congress
leader.
has an 8%, that number is unbelievable. Congress has an 8% approval rating, and the second biggest leader in Congress is out there, and his approval rating is not going to be much better than that. And
but they're very popular in their own district, and if he's not popular in his own district,
for sure. I'm just saying in general, the president is more popular than the people he's picking on in this case, and that's within the party.
When Donald Trump is impeached, is it legal for him to go run for Senate in Kentucky? No?
Well, he could get Mrs. Mnuchin to campaign for him down there. That would be easy.
Oh, yeah, with their bags.
Yeah. So the bottom line is, look, when these guys are up for re-election and Trump has turned their own base against them, they're in for a world of hurt. And it is because of Trump, because Rand Paul is at 39% in the same state, and he's mainly kept out of the spotlight, and Trump has not attacked Rand Paul, he's attacked McConnell. So it's mainly because of Trump's attacks that McConnell's numbers are so damn low, and I don't know that you can recover from an 18% approval rating. So there's an excellent chance that Trump walked in the building, blew the place up, and the Republican senators will lose, and so will Trump. So like I said, there's no winners in that fight except the American people.
Right.
Eventually.
And one real loser in that fight is your Secretary of Transportation, Mrs. Mitch McConnell. That must be a tough place for Elaine Chao to be, at home with Mitch McConnell and serving Donald Trump during the day in his cabinet.
It's okay. They have millions of dollars to cushion them when they fall.
Right.
Okay. We're way over, but I love the Robert Lee story, so super quick.
I'm going to tell this very quickly. The ESPN has moved one of their announcers from their game against the University of Virginia versus College of William Mary. Go Wahoos, go UVA. And they're moving him to another game because his name is Robert Lee. Reuters today tweeted out that ESPN is moving a Confederate doppelganger meaning somebody who is a double, looks exactly like. Let's show you Robert Lee and Robert E. Lee here to show you the doppelgangers that they are. Right.
Wait,
there.
which one was the general?
He wore a tie, so but that doesn't give it away. Bow tie, yeah, that must be the guy on the left. this is, a ridiculous story on the one hand, because I think that the intent, and here's what ESPN said about the intent that ESPN had here was just to kind of avoid any kind of controversy, and it was not a judgment on Robert Lee, but they kind of blew it.
Yeah, so, I mean, at first blush, it's preposterous.
Right.
So
at second blush it is.
And on third blush, it's preposterous. Okay, so not a defense of it, but I think that the only thing I'll say that it is, and when I first read it last night, I was like, ESPN, for Christ's sake, that is so dumb. So don't mistake me that there's no question it was not the right move. The only defense of it is that it has now been twisted to mean they were trying to avoid offending people, and that's not what they were trying to do. And they've said over and over again, no, we were just trying to not catch grief. Like, hey, you knuckleheads, why'd you put a guy named Robert Lee at the NBA game? Ha ha, you're so stupid for arranging it like that. And partly, based on their statements, they keep saying, we mutually agreed. We were trying to protect him.
Which I do believe, by the way. I mean, listen, this guy would have had to. I think this guy would have had to endure a lot of grief, a lot of memes, a lot of tweets, a lot of, and for them to say, why don't you just do the other game? I mean, I could see it being matter of fact.
But why did they press release it? I hear you on all that, and when I heard this
they
morning,
only press released the response. Didn't they only press release the response?
Regardless, why? Why? They made it worse by making it a story so that it led in the morning shows.
Yeah.
Like Today's Show did a thing, NPR, and here we are in the evening still talking about it, and it's become a bigger story.
I live in a town that has a statue of sportscaster Robert Lee, and we're going to take it down. We're going to
rebrand it. Robert Lee, Robert Lee should have been like, I'm rebranding Robert Lee.
Totally.
Taking over his name.
The new Confederacy.
Yeah, and no one is going to play the Jeffersons anymore on TV because no. All right. One of the statues, by the way, they went to go protect was Thomas Jefferson. So at the All Right rally, that's hence the reference to the Jeffersons. But anyway, last thing on this is that. Look, ESPN probably hasn't dealt with a lot of this, a little bit around the edges, because some conservatives think ESPN is too liberal.
They call them MSESPN.
Okay, now the reason for that is, they remember they had Rush Limbaugh and they had to let him go because he made racist comments. One, he made racist comments. If you think making racist comments is no big deal, the problem might not be them. Right? And remember, they're the guys who hired Rush Limbaugh in the first place.
Right.
They're also part of the company that hired Dennis Miller. They hired conservative after conservative. That's not an issue for them.
This damn liberal network doesn't have any sort of, they can't endure the racists. What kind of liberals?
They should hire Colin Kaepernick to fill in.
But even so, I don't think that they've ever dealt with this level of trolling. So some of the conservative websites pretended that they had fired Robert Lee. Yeah. And so they had to at least come out and say, we didn't fire the guy. We like the guy. We just moved him to a different game. He's working. He's the same weekend. It's a different game. Get off our ass.
Right. We had a good idea, and Lee surrendered. It was good up until
you were holding that in for a while.
I wasn't actually. I just came up with it. We didn't fire him. So he surrendered.
Yes. Anyway, they shouldn't have moved him. And now, after making enough fun of them, let's get off their ass.
I do love the graphic though behind us. It's cracking me up.
And hopefully, Virginia beats William and Mary.
I don't know what that means.
I know you don't. That was for you, though.
Yeah. Don't worry, they won't.
No fuss, no bigger fuss has ever been made over Virginia football, so it's pretty good.
That's true. All right, Michael and Nomi, thank you so much. Everybody check out Nomi on youtube.com/TYT Politics. Everybody check out Michael on I-24 News. And Anna is going to come back in the next segment, and we have some amazing stories for you guys. Including, like I said, some international outrage at a couple of kids, one doing the Macarena in Saudi Arabia. Find out how that turned out. We'll be right back.
TYT is unique in a lot of ways.
I'm going to ask some uncomfortable questions. I feel like I missed out.
So what is going on?
If I don't eat, my head's going to explode.
As I take my shirt off, just goes, is that your body?
Now we move to inappropriate story number 2.
I just never felt guilty about masturbation.
It's amazing.
I could take partial credit for opening up your sexuality.
I was the kid in the pool with the shirt on.
Let's just call it what it is. I was that kid.
Well, you deal with the bitch side of it, right? But you're my boss, so that's what happens.
I think we're more like they do see it from a frame of the rich and the powerful, and they don't realize it. The last time that happened, we elected Abraham Lincoln. I don't know, wouldn't it be wonderful if we unfucked the world?
You and I are a disaster.
Don't stereotype all cops, don't stereotype all any blowing up like Dave Kohler on Twitter. Oh, that's pretty good progress. I didn't know you could leave positive comments. It's a very TYT thing. So you have a whole bunch of depressing stuff. So that at the end I can give you a vote. Winning is, in terms of change and positive change, is not just possible, it's inevitable.
Great time to be alive.
Let's burn this mother down. That's what you're saying? Fuck it, let's go do it. And that's why I thank you guys for being members. Because together, we got their attention. Thanks for tuning in, and as always, stay strong.
Hey, Jen, what's up? Aaron, did they change the icon for Vine? I can't find it. Today is truly a historic day with the Supreme Court decision that makes same-sex marriage legal nationwide.
So this is one of those days in American history. It doesn't come along that often. Where we have expanded the circle of liberty. Look, all we try to do on this show, okay, is to give you perspectives, right? So you can get a better understanding.
We need to change our mentality and understand why these people are trying to leave their own countries and everything that they've known, everything that they've built.
Yeah.
It's not to come here and harm you.
Anytime you force someone, like they did in Arizona, to carry their paperwork, it's to remind them every day that they do not belong in your society.
Now that is the sound of fascism beginning here in America.
Doesn't that scare you? Don't you see history repeating itself? That xenophobia and pro-populism to get people worked up to attack outsiders.
That is violent rhetoric, and your violent rhetoric translates to violent action. If you don't get that, well, you're either in denial or you know it's true and you just don't want to admit it.
What's the message we're sending to the rest of the world? You can give us your poor, you're tired, and we will greatly mistreat them under horrible conditions where some of them will die. That's not what the Statue of Liberty says. If you asked me to come up with something insulting to Latinos, I couldn't have done anything like this. I wouldn't have thought to insult the grandkids. Yeah. 2/3 of people shot when they're unarmed were blacks and Latinos. That means they were wrong. They're like, who cares? Shoot them, shoot them, shoot them, shoot them.
Look, my dad was born in Syria. My dad could have stayed in Syria, and he could have been a victim of all this, right? And the thought of the United States saying no to Syrian victims, I don't know. It makes me incredibly emotional and incredibly angry because I think it goes against what this country's about.
The fighters, the warriors, the ones who go the extra mile, in this case literally, to provide for their family and to look for that American dream. And they shouldn't be forced to live in an American nightmare. Back on the Young Turks. Look at this, Casper's here.
Hey guys.
Lovely to have you here. Lovely to have you in a nice spring dress, although we're approaching fall.
We are. I know. I needed to bust it out and use it one more time before the fall season begins.
The leaves have started to turn even in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And I love America. Okay. I'm not sure. I'm the hookiest dude in the world, and you guys know it.
I'm not sure anyone loves America more than I do. Like, all those false patriots are like, oh, don't question the country. They don't really know what the American stands for. I do, and I freaking love it. Okay, Rita Ann writes in, Mitch McConnell retreating into his shell. Comedy gold there. Why, thank you. I appreciate that. I Am Sock writes in, I am so tired of winning. That's really funny. Jeremy says it's over. That kind of language from McConnell is practically a vote of no confidence. Ladies and gentlemen, we hold hashtag too soon. So no, not yet. But that McConnell's lack of confidence, lack of faith in Trump could be very, very relevant later. MCX writes in, major crush on Nomiki Konst, watching TYT from Germany. Keep up the good fight. And by the way, Nomi will be on Old School tonight. So me, Nomi, Adam Green, Mark Thompson, it's progressive extravaganza on Old School tonight. And from YouTube Super Chat, Fred Curry writes in, Anna ripped out and ate Ann Coulter's heart in the debate. Hashtag Anna for Khaleesi.
Damn, where did that come from?
I don't know, but I like it.
Thank you.
Well, I do know. YouTube Super Chat. Use it. It helps the show, and we read your comments. All right, Anna, what's next?
All right. Due to new DNA evidence, a man who was just hours away from being executed was issued a stay of execution. Now there will be a board looking into the matter to decide whether or not he will be exonerated or if he is still found guilty of a murder that took place in the late 1990s. Now the DNA on the murder weapon did not match Marcellus Williams's DNA. Okay, so instead it was found to belong to an unknown male. So let me give you some background on the crime that occurred. So back in 1999, there was a reporter that was stabbed to death in her own home, and prosecutors alleged that Marcellus Williams was burglarizing her home, and then when she appeared, he retaliated by stabbing her to death. Now, he was convicted, but again, the new DNA evidence indicates that the DNA on that knife does not match his DNA. It matches the DNA of an unidentified man, right? Now, a sentence of death is the ultimate. Now, the governor decided, I'm going to go ahead and do a stay until we can really look into this matter because we don't want to execute the wrong person. So here's what the governor said. A sentence of death is the ultimate permanent punishment. To carry out the death penalty, the people of Missouri must have confidence in the judgment of guilt. But the Attorney General in the state is saying, no, this guy is guilty. I mean, the DNA evidence might indicate one thing, but maybe some other guy had handled the knife before. Maybe Marcellus was wearing a glove when he was handling the weapon, and they say that they have other evidence that indicates that he's guilty. But the important thing is we need to have an investigation into the matter and be absolutely certain before carrying out this form of punishment.
Okay, so understand that they did not cancel the execution. They just delayed the execution to get more evidence. It's better that they delayed it, of course. Look, I think there's some chance the prosecutor's right. Because when you look at the other evidence, two witnesses say that Williams confessed to them. Now, that happens all the time. Sometimes they do it to get a better bargain for themselves, to serve less prison time. Who knows? I don't know who those witnesses are. I have no idea if they're in prison or anything along those lines. And he did, according to the evidence, he sold Felicia Gale's laptop right after her death. That's pretty good evidence. And is it possible that it was a kitchen knife that other people used that were in her house and he was wearing gloves? Yeah, of course it's possible. Should we execute him? Hell no. Are you crazy? Like, if you're not... First, that's the whole problem with the death penalty. We can never be as certain, and we're way, way away from certain in this case. Come on, guys, even if you're for the death penalty. I used to be for the death penalty, but this is why I switched my mind. Because it turns out there were dozens of people on death row that didn't do it. Not like this case. Like, clearly didn't do it. They found out later that it was somebody else's DNA. They go to the guy, he confesses to the murder. They got the wrong guy. Dozens of them. We were going to execute them. We were going to kill them. We were going to murder them when they were innocent. So in a case like this, I don't know if he's innocent or guilty. I do know I don't want to execute him because I don't want to go, later, you know what? It turns out he didn't wear a glove. It really was the other guy. Oops. No, that's not a thing you can go oops about.
Right. And look, you also have to keep in mind what the burden of proof is when you are charging and convicting someone of murder. The burden of proof is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. And so I think it is important for them to open this investigation and take a look at all of the evidence and kind of determine whether or not the evidence indicates that he's guilty beyond a reasonable doubt.
Yeah, I mean, look at all the bare minimum we haven't done yet. So whose DNA was it on the knife? If it turns out it's somebody that used to come over to her house all the time, her dad or whatever, okay, that doesn't prove anything. If it turns out it's some other guy who was a serial killer, that proves a lot. Right? So let's find out whose DNA it was. And we're not talking about relitigating the case itself, which there should be an argument over, especially if we find out whose DNA is on the knife. We're just talking about should you kill the guy or should you not kill the guy.
Right.
Don't execute this guy. That's nuts. And the final argument against it is what Ben Mankiewicz says all the time. It's like, this woman was stabbed 43 times. If he in fact did do it, don't create any sympathy for him. And what it does is it makes people go, no, don't kill him. And if he did it, none of us should have any sympathy for him. We should lock him away for life and never let him out. And Jesus, I mean, that's whoever did it butchered that poor woman to death, right? We want justice, but we don't want injustice. It's not that complicated.
Yes. All right, moving on to some international news. Many are now protesting leadership in the Philippines after the death of a 17-year-old boy. Now, this death centered around an incident involving cops. The police alleged that Kian De Los Santos was armed and that he opened fire against the cops, which led them to return fire, and then they shot and killed him. However, there was witness testimony and also surveillance footage that indicated that that was not, in fact, what happened. And so this is all part of Duterte's support of extrajudicial killings involving those who are either in possession of or trafficking drugs. And, he's gotten a lot of support for having that policy, but a lot of people, many of which never got a day in court, have died as a result of that. In fact, there have been 12,500 casualties as a result of these extrajudicial killings. And unfortunately, it took the death of an innocent 17-year-old for people to wake up and realize this is probably not a good idea. Now, police initially claimed, let's go to graphic 10. Police initially claimed that he had fired first, but their story was contradicted by witnesses and CCTV footage that showed the teenager being dragged down alleyways into a dead-end corner where he was asked to run with a gun and shot when he did.
Let's pause there because I want to give some more context. Of the 12,500 people killed, 3,500 have been killed in police shootouts where the officers claimed self-defense. But now when you see on video that they put a gun in the kid's hands and make him run away and then shoot him in the back, well, you get a sense of maybe those weren't shootouts. Maybe this is something that they do, not maybe, almost certainly what they do on a regular basis to murder people. Now, was the kid a drug dealer? No. It turns out the kid actually wanted to be a cop. And the last thing that anybody heard from him when he was screaming, "Please, can I go home? I have school tomorrow." So this is what happens when you have no rule of law.
This is what happens when you elect crazy people, right? This is what happens when you elect crazy people. There's a reason why a justice system is supposed to exist, right? So people can have their day in court and they can be found guilty or innocent, and then you can carry out the appropriate actions following that day in court. But they decided against that. They decided to support a crazy person like Duterte who thinks that someone who might be addicted to drugs is worthy of murdering, okay?
And not only that.
And by the way, we live in a country that elects crazy people as well. And Donald Trump has been very supportive of Duterte and his tough-on-crime policies. But in reality, these tough-on-crime policies end up killing completely innocent people and people who just need help with rehabilitation.
Yeah, so there are three layers at a minimum in the problems that that this approach has. One is, okay, killing drug dealers. Wait, nobody passed those laws. Dealing drugs is not an offense that you should be executed for. If it was, we would agree as a society that we should. We didn't pass that law in America. They didn't pass that law in the Philippines. But he's executed him anyway. Second layer is much more troubling. Oh, if you're taking drugs, he's executing you. For Christ's sake. I mean, that's a healthcare issue. It's like going around shooting everybody who's having a beer. I don't know, you seem like you were addicted to alcohol. Alcohol's a big problem in America, or in the Philippines in this case. Shoot him in the head. That's insanity. The other stuff was probably murder, but we don't know if the drug dealers had weapons or not. The drug users are almost definitely murder. Now we get to the third layer, which is once you start killing people, you stop checking whether they're the guys you were going after in the first place. Mm-hmm. You've got a blank check from a dictator saying, go take care of the problem, and I'm not going to hold you accountable. When you don't hold cops accountable, this is what happens.
Yeah. So, look, there is corruption in the Philippines just like there's corruption in pretty much every other country. And there are multiple political parties. And those who support Duterte, just like those who support Trump, like to make excuses for him because they don't want to accept the reality of supporting a crazy person who's actually destructive for their society. And so the excuse that they're coming up with for Duterte is, oh, the political opponents are setting this up. There's some sort of weird conspiracy theory to set this up so Duterte looks bad. No. Duterte is terrible, okay? He is the person who gave a green light to vigilante injustice, really, and he has given a green light to people doing these extrajudicial killings. Okay, so there are no excuses for Duterte. Duterte has been on the record over and over again saying that he applauds and supports this. And now that he's been caught supporting something that has been destructive, he's trying to walk it back a little bit. He's saying, oh, no, this is terrible. And he is saying that these cops need to be put in custody. No, you need to be put in custody. There's no reason why someone like him should be a leader of a country.
So once you open up a can of worms of lawlessness, vigilante justice, and the president saying you don't have to follow the law, you can just kill people, it leads down a very, very dark alley, and it does every single time. And it did in this case, unfortunately, literally. They found the kid, his body was bullet riddled, it was in a fetal position, and he was semi-naked. So, and then they pretended that he was a dangerous guy. And so this is the thing that has outraged the Philippines, where it's gone too far. But to Anna's point, you should have known it was going to go there. This is when you allow someone to break the law and have no consequences, in this case Duterte, and then the cops that he unleashed. Well, this is a guaranteed result. So don't if you supported Duterte before, don't feign outrage now. This is what you authorized. But now that you realize what he's actually doing, throw him the hell out of office. And may you be the first to throw a right-wing dictator out, or someone with dictatorial tendencies, and may others follow.
All right, let's take a break. When we come back, some more international news for you.
I have decided that I'm going to get ripped. Okay?
What?
Okay?
Like, physically?
Yeah. Oh. What, you don't believe me?
I 100% don't believe you.
I will get so ripped, here's my prediction, that someone at TYT will say, Cenk, you've got to stop working out.
Wait, we're tired of you winning.
So you don't believe me?
Cenk, you don't have time to, do your daily duties for the main show.
I don't even have time for your daily duties. Because what you guys don't know is how great my muscles already are.
It's absolutely possible. But you can't have Leah run to the food truck to get you like 2 different types of grilled cheeses with like tater tots for lunch. Like, you can't have that anymore.
Let's see what happens.
You also have to go to the gym regularly.
Let's see what happens. All I'm saying is, let's see what happens. Have I ever been wrong about a prediction? Almost that.
Join it.
Back on TYT, Rebecca Jonesy writes, and I love it when I'm on Facebook and see my friends posting about how they are TYT subscribers also. Damn right, I love that too, Rebecca. Who spread the word? Jess, it's just me, writes in. So Trump likes the whole tough on crime thing. When Trump's crimes are uncovered, let's see if he still feels the same way. Isn't it? Well, I mean, Sheriff Joe reminds me of that crying Nazi guy, right? Oh yeah, these criminals, I'm gonna get them. I'm gonna make them wear pink underwear. I'm gonna put them in a den. Put them in a jail. What criminals? Oh, me? Why are you coming after me? Why are you coming after me? Somebody pardon me. Please, somebody pardon me. Bitch. All right. Cynthia Mahone and Leonard Bates are the members of the day. As always, we'll have a terrific post game for you guys. Today is Wednesday. We've got Old School for the members and TYT Classics, so it's a great day for the members. TYTnetwork.com/join to become one. And I just got to update you real quick on the polls that we've been asking because they're so amazing. Should we leave Afghanistan, even if it means creating a possible vacuum for the Taliban to fill? I mean, that is as conservative a leaning framing as you can have. 89% saying yes, leave anyway. No is 11%. Should you be kicked out of college for going to the Charlottesville rally? Still holding strong at 55%. No. Should Trump be disqualified from the presidency for mental incompetence? And as outrage at a lack of a yes vote there has swung the electorate.
I mean, come on, guys. Really? You don't think someone should be disqualified for being mentally incompetent?
No.
For being the president? Like, I mean, come on.
I know, but the question is he actually mentally incompetent? By the understanding of the 25th Amendment. Anyway, you have won the crowd, Anna.
Good.
Now 67% saying yes.
Thank you.
And should they have pulled down the Confederate monument in North Carolina? Still very close, but 53% saying yes now. Just wanted to update you on all those fun polls. All right, what's next, Anna?
All right. A 14-year-old boy has been arrested in Saudi Arabia for performing the Macarena. Yes. The fun 1990s dance craze that took over America will get you arrested in Saudi Arabia. And it's unfortunate. Now, there's a video showing what he did. Let's take a quick look at that, and then I'll fill in some more details. While in the middle of the street, fun kid. He has a smile on his face, having a good time. Starts doing the Macarena. I mean, come on. So apparently this video was filmed a year ago, but he just got arrested for it. It was posted last year, but his arrest was reported just this past Monday.
Okay. They said that this was, quote, improper public behavior. He is improperly out of date with the Macarena. But outside of that, I'm going to say who doesn't love this kid? But we have our answer. It's the Muslim fundamentalist government of Saudi Arabia, who are some of the worst people on earth. So I think Footloose is one of the most American movies ever made. And so yes, we had this problem too at some point in America where some conservative Christians didn't want people to dance. Luckily, we've gotten past it. There's still tiny, tiny pockets in America. And when you run across them, you're like, really?
Wait. Like Christian fundamentalists today who don't like people to dance?
Yes. Okay, I know it seems unbelievable. But again, these things are not equal.
Yeah.
That's a problem we've largely gotten rid of. There's still like a bunch of old rules left over. You can't buy alcohol on Sundays because God's watching or whatever.
No,
right?
there are entire counties that don't allow you to buy
alcohol. There are dry counties, right. I know, yeah. So some of that still is like some remnants, but it's nothing like Saudi Arabia where they don't want you to have fun. Like anything that's fun is forbidden. And it's ironically the most unnatural thing in the world because fundamentalists of all stripes will say things like, oh, being gay is wrong, it's unnatural. Well, then how come it occurs in nature? So, it doesn't make any sense. But you know what's unnatural? Trying to get human beings to stop having sex. Trying to get human beings to stop dancing. It's in our DNA. We've been doing it since the beginning of man. And so trying to stop people from doing that is the most unnatural thing you could do. So this is part of why I love America, because here we're free and we can dance if we like to. And if your friends don't dance, they're no friends of mine. Okay? But in other countries like Saudi Arabia, when this happens, it's heartbreaking, man, because it's not the fault of the Saudi people. That kid wants to dance. Let him dance. Let him dance. Let the whole country dance. If you let them, they'd all dance. But it's their dictators that are in charge that made a deal with the Wahhabis. Still live millennia ago, and barbarians.
This is so devastating, especially when you consider that the world is full of pretty terrible people. And here you have, you have a 14-year-old who isn't hurting anyone. He's having a little bit of a good time, right? You're going to arrest him and do what? What are they going to do with him? What kind of justice are they looking for? You know what I'm saying? It's just such a waste of everyone's time, resources. What does this teach a 14-year-old who just wants to have fun and dance? You know?
Earlier this month, a singer was arrested in Saudi Arabia for doing the dab move in an onstage dance. Okay.
There's no other crime going on in Saudi Arabia. Just this kind of stuff. People dancing, people dabbing.
So I know folks who will say, no, but Jake, they're starting to go in the right direction, and they once let one woman drive in secret or whatever it is that they call reform. And you have to understand, you have to take the tranquilizing drug of gradualism. We have to do this like 1 inch at a time. And by the, 28th century or the 38th century, finally Saudi Arabia will be free. No, you don't have to do it that way. The only reason why you think you have to do it that way is if you're already in power. And you don't want to let go of that power. You don't want to risk that power at all. So you want to keep a vice-like grip on it. Nobody disappoints us at all. Let's do a little pressure valve release here. Oh, I made 1% reform. Can I continue to be your dictator? Right?
Yeah, I remember having a conversation with someone who is part of Saudi royalty. And she was trying to convince me that things are getting a lot better in Saudi Arabia. Okay. Yeah, not buying it. And I remember the entire time throughout that conversation, I was like, look, I get it, okay? You are Saudi royalty, and it's in your best interest to, put your game face on and then go talk to other people and talk about how great your country is and how they're making so much progress. They're not making so much progress. Women are still not allowed to drive. Women are still forced to be covered head to toe. A 14-year-old gets arrested for dancing. I mean, how is that getting better? How is that progressivism? It's not.
It's slightly better than the old regime, which is damning with very, very faint praise. So here's how you can let women drive. Let them drive. Okay, here's how you can do reforms. Do real reforms. Now, what they would say back is, well, no, but that would be, you don't know the culture here. That would be destabilizing.
Yeah, don't care about your culture.
No. First of all, that's a whole other thing. And yes, I definitely don't care about the wrong parts of your culture. No interest in protecting that. And everybody's got bad parts of their culture, and you got to let that go. But beyond that, it's all they mean is destabilizing to whom? It's destabilizing to the people in power.
That's right.
And they don't want that. So anyway, look, let religion go. And okay, but they're wonderful religious people. But this is definite and clear. Let fundamentalism go. This whole idea that some religious leader has a one-way communication, or maybe even they claim sometimes two-way communication with God, and knows what God or Allah wants, and he doesn't want your 14-year-old to dance and ever have a good time. He's almost definitely, not almost, and I know it, they're all lying to you to protect their own power. Set yourself free. Let go of this ancient garbage.
Yep. All right, moving on. Let's go back to the U.S. All right. First Lady Melania Trump is thanking Chelsea Clinton for defending her son, Barron Trump. Now, why did Barron Trump need to be defended? Well, the Daily Caller, which is one of the most disgusting publications of all time, decided that it'd be a great idea to pick on an 11-year-old and the way that he dresses. So Ford Springer from the Daily Caller wrote an opinion piece about how Barron doesn't dress nice enough, because there's nothing else to write about. So the headline was, it's high time for Barron Trump. It's high time Barron Trump starts dressing like he's in the White House. Okay, so let me give you a few pieces of what this guy wrote so you kind of get a sense of how petty he is. He wrote, while the president and first lady traveled in their Sunday best, young Barron looked like he was hopping on Air Force One for a trip to the movie theater. What am I missing here? Is Barron just better than I ever was at rebelling against my parents? His dad is always looking dapper, and his mom has become a worldwide fashion icon since becoming First Lady. The youngest Trump doesn't have any responsibilities as the president's son, but the least he could do is dress the part when he steps out in public. Now, to be fair to the readers of the Daily Caller, a lot of them did criticize Springer for writing this stupid opinion article. But what I love is that Chelsea Clinton stood up for Barron and said, let the kid be a kid. Don't rob him of his childhood, and kids should be off limits, regardless of, political ideology of the parents and all that. Who cares? Off limits. He's an 11-year-old. So anyway, because Chelsea Clinton defended him, Melania did go ahead and thank her very publicly on Twitter. Thank you, Chelsea Clinton. So important to support all of our children in being themselves. #StopChildhoodBullying.
Okay. I'm not going to say a couple of unacceptable things.
She should probably focus a little bit on her husband bullying.
Yeah.
But
world's biggest bully.
Yeah.
All right, let me say a couple of unacceptable things. Nothing having to do with Barron. Of course, don't talk about the kids. But one is Chelsea Clinton gets too much credit for this. It's like it's the smallest niche in the world. Her niche is protecting other presidential kids. Whenever a presidential kid is ever mentioned, Chelsea comes out like, don't do it. It's not the right thing to do.
Look,
and the whole press is like, bravo, Chelsea. Like, it's a layup. I'm not trying to take credit away from her, but it's not a hard position to take.
Right. Well, look, I agree with you in that the media does go nuts over the smallest things, especially if it involves, old school political families and things like that. But Chelsea Clinton was a child of a president, and I'm sure she went through quite a bit, especially considering, what her dad did when he was in office.
No, I know. Look, I'm old, dude. I covered it, and Rush Limbaugh was a total prick to her and made fun of her looks when she was like 13, I think, but underage.
Can we just have just a quick conversation about how ironic it is that someone like Rush Limbaugh would ever have the audacity to comment on anyone else's looks, ever. Okay.
Anyway, but so look, she's not doing anything wrong. She's also like we don't have to give her a medal. But anyway, God bless. And then Melania, I'm going to get more unacceptable here with the hashtag Stop Childhood Bullying. The guy just said he should dress up. He shouldn't have said it. He's an idiot, right? But is it like bullying the kid? It's like now this has become like a thing where this is like somehow related to childhood bullying.
You're being ridiculous. Yeah, it is. He's 11 years old, okay? You're coming from your own little bubble where we get like harassment and abuse on a daily basis. So if someone comments on the way we dress, we're like, oh, it's a good day, right?
It's a good day in America, right? That's all.
Exactly. But in this case, it's an 11-year-old boy, okay? Why? Why do you need to pick on an 11-year-old boy? Really? That's the only thing you can think about to write.
No, of course. For the 18th time, I'm not defending the writer. He's an idiot. I'm just saying they're making a federal case out of this.
This
is not the worst example of childhood bullying. There's much more egregious examples. Okay, I don't like his shirt. He should have worn a better shirt. I'm kidding. What do they care what he wears?
I just want you to trash the Daily Caller right now.
Sure. I hate the Daily Caller.
Okay, great. That's all I wanted. They're terrible. All right, moving on. All right, we're going to talk about pigs now. A group of piglets were rescued months ago by firefighters, and the big update to the story now is that the individual who owns the farm wanted to thank the firefighters by giving them sausages that were produced by these piglets that were saved. All right, so the 18 piglets and 2 sows survived the fire in February, which saw 60 tons of hay catch fire. Now, the farm manager, Rachel Rivers, thanked these firefighters by giving them sausages. Okay, so the firefighters posted a photo of themselves barbecuing the sausages on social media, and people were kind of outraged by it. So then they took down the picture, and then they apologized, saying that it was insensitive. Yeah. Okay, you guys jump in.
Okay, it's almost as if they never heard the saying,
animals are innocent.
Now, look, this is unfortunate timing, circumstance, etc. But we do eat pigs. Sausages are delicious. So they would have eaten it under different circumstances. So our outrage at them is a little weird. At the same time, don't get me wrong, I get it. Yeah. Like, it was those particular pigs that they saved. And they're like, oh, let's break their necks and eat them.
No, I know. So you're right. It doesn't sound or look good. But, I mean, if you take a step back, for those of you who don't believe in eating animal products, I get you, I hear you, you're going to be outraged no matter what, okay? However, keep in mind that the firefighters went to save a farm, okay? What is the farm for? People don't farm animals for shiggles, like shits and giggles. They farm animals because, it's their livelihood. And that's what Rachel Rivers said. She's like, this is our business. This is how we make money. And so, we were going to kill those pigs at some point anyway. And so we wanted to thank the firefighters by giving them some sauce.
This is ironic.
It is. I agree.
And that's the fun part. Yeah. I saw the story, so I want to make sure we do it. Because, okay, so we have blind spots, right? I mean, everyone wants to save a dog, except for some people who decide to buy them, like they're, and spend thousands and thousands of dollars. But in LA, we're all like a bunch of dog savers. It's just odd if you go and save a dog from a shelter, and then you're tired of it, so you go and throw it out in the street. It's just weird. You don't want to kill something you just saved and go back. I mean, we know we kill dogs every day in shelters. Like, again, it all comes back. It's what they do. They have to euthanize and kill these dogs. But if you go and specifically save one, and then later kill that same very dog, it seems like it's kind of defeated the purpose. Yeah, sure, those pigs are going to be killed and eaten by someone else, but it should be eaten by the same people that just saved the damn
No,
pig.
but that's why context is important here. I thought the same thing, like, hey, can we take a break here for a second and then maybe have somebody else eat the pigs later? But it turns out they did. It was not like they saved them from the fire. They're like, oh, now let's put them back in the fire, right? No, it was 6 months later. They got invited back to the farm and they ate the pigs then.
Besides which,
so they used the pigs in the meanwhile, and they were saving the whole farm, not just the pigs.
that's I think the most important context to share with the audience, because it's not like the firefighters went there specifically to save the piglets. They went there because there was a fire at a farm, and so they went to go save the farm in general. And by doing so, they just happened to also save some of the animals there. But again, look, if you're against eating animal products, you're going to hate it no matter what, regardless of what the context is. And I get that. But I also do get that it is ironic, and it just sounds weird.
Yeah, it's like the bad timing of my circumcision story. Of course, which is what you guys were all thinking about.
That's exactly what I was thinking about.
Yeah.
I can't stop thinking about your circumcision story.
Well, after I tell you, you won't be able to. So, and some of you have heard this if you
Oh, he's
are
going to tell the
members. I'm
story.
going to tell it again.
All right, great.
Anyway, no, I got circumcised at the age of 6, which is a terrible idea. It's maybe one of the reasons I left Islam. Anyway, no, it's just a bad cultural practice, if you ask me. Anyway, and then they dress you up in a clown outfit as if that's supposed to make you feel better. And then at some point, we went down to my parents' hometown, and they're like, okay, there's a sheep here. And what is it? It's a present for you. I'm like, oh, that's so cute. You know, oh, look, it's Ali, and you play with the sheep. And then they're like, oh, no, we made a present this way. We're going to eat Ali tonight, right? Now, in reality, you eat lamb all the time. If you're in Turkey, all you do is eat lamb.
Mm-hmm.
You just kind of didn't want to see it happen right in front of you when you're 6. And so I did not partake. I didn't eat Ali that night. Okay. And by the way, I love gyros, so I do eat. But lamb chunks, which is what they serve that night, I've never eaten.
Really?
Yes.
So you don't eat like rack of lamb chops?
Well, no, the chunks of lamb. Okay, I don't know if it's because I got scarred that night, right?
Mm-hmm.
But lamb chops, yeah, they're delicious. As long as you don't kill Ali in front of me. So, I'm with JR. Look, I know they were saving the farm. I know it was a lot later. I know we eat pigs. Just give them different pigs to eat, right? Or invite them over for burgers. I'm saying, because you've got to remember.
Animals are innocent.
Or just don't share anything on social media, and this will never become a big story.
Yeah, well, that's also true, too. All right, guys, we do have a fun post game for you, where you, if you remember, you would have known that circumcision story a long time ago. TYTnetwork.com/join, and don't miss Old School tonight at 11 as well, if you remember. Bye-bye.